So where can you go to quickly and objectively find people's opinions on stocks to invest in? Social media? Do you Google it? Do you listen to your crazy cousin who has way too many opinions on what everyone else should be doing with their lives? All those voices might not actually be trustworthy, and there could be a much better option out there. This video is a review of my last month or so using NoBias. It's a brand new service, and I'm going to talk to you all about it today. Right up front, I want to make it clear that this is a sponsored video, and NoBias paid me to make it. However, the only way I considered doing this was if they gave me complete free and unfettered freedom to say anything I want. Literally anything. They don't get to censor anything, they don't get to approve or disapprove anything, and they only ask that I talk about their service and my time using it. That's all. In fact, they haven't even seen this video. They have no idea what I'm going to say. So thanks to NoBias for sponsoring this video with integrity. In trying out NoBias, I got the impression that the name made sense in two different ways. First, it seems like they want to be unbiased themselves in the presenting of information to you. So it's just laid out bare in front of you, allowing you to make the call, and they aren't selling you any particular bend or opinion or hot stock tips. There's none of that. The second way is that they're serving a customer and investor who wants to be unbiased themselves and is looking to gain perspectives outside their automatic kind of circle of voices that they're surrounded with day to day. So that means that that person, like you or I, could be willing to accept that, hey, maybe there's someone else out there who's smart, who has good reasons to think the opposite of me and the other voices that I'm hearing, and maybe it's worth listening to them. So it's like double not biased. What does NoBias do? What is their service? Well, it's a number of different things. So first off, it's a dedicated website, and you can store your portfolio in it if you want to kind of check up on the news of your stocks, or you can just follow particular stocks that you're interested in. You can also follow your preferred authors as far as people online who are writing about stocks, and it basically gives you their opinions, their articles, and an overall kind of summary of what's happening with that stock all in one view. So it gives you the option to see what everyone is saying about that stock, and it also gives you the option to filter out those voices to just the chosen people that you want. NoBias is also an internet browser extension that you can add on to your current like Chrome browser, and it adds a little subtle icon or rating next to different news articles, and it gives you a quick and easy sort of synopsis of the author or the publication's stance, and that's a potentially cool thing. Like, I don't think it works at all on mobile from my experience, but on a desktop it does work, and it does give you like a really quick at a glance view. Like I mentioned before, it also serves as a hub for researching the companies of your choice because it links directly to articles that are either for or against that stock. So it's almost like topically you look up that stock and then it gives you all the articles that have mentioned it recently. And to do that, it draws from written word online. So articles, blogs, news reports, all that kind of stuff that's written, that's online. They're all kind of pulled together and analyzed by NoBias's algorithm that they have made. So no YouTubers will be credible authors on this one. And that's probably for the best. If we're honest, us YouTubers are kind of a messy bunch. One of the primary questions that I had when I started using the service was just, is their algorithm actually accurate? Because if you think about it, there's a lot of people writing a lot of words out there, and there's even like computer written articles out there. So can they accurately interpret whether or not something is bullish or bearish? Can they take that jumble of words and process that accurately to say, yeah, people are actually for this stock or they're not for it? I tested it out on a couple of stocks just kind of here and there, and as a test, I just threw SPYD in there. So overall, NoBias at the time claimed it was 98% bullish towards that. Not NoBias, that people were 98% bullish, which bullish, if you're not familiar, means you have kind of a positive opinion, like you think things are going to go up and make more money in the future. Bearish is that you think things are going to go down, you have a negative opinion. So you can remember it like a bull, when it's attacking, the horns go up, and then a bear, when it's attacking, the claws come down. I literally physically picture animals attacking whenever I think about that phrase. NoBias conglomerated all this info, said that SPYD was 98% bullish, and then there was this one article that claimed it was bearish. And so I thought, well, let's check on the article, because that's a handy thing about the service. You can literally just click on the article and it will take you to that native site. So you can verify for yourself, or you can even just use it as sort of like a super search engine for articles that you want to read. So I did this with this article. I clicked on it, and it's definitely bearish. Like, I think the analysis is pretty accurate here. I was a little bit impressed that they actually could process through all of that, could get through through the different nuances in human language and could come out with the right result. Then as another test, I wanted to try out a bullish article, and so by the title of this article that I found on seekingalpha.com, it did seem bullish, but then I got stuck behind a paywall, so I couldn't actually analyze it that much. And now that I think about it, that's actually an interesting feature too, because that means they're getting through those paywalls, getting to the text, and they're able to analyze it for you. So you don't even necessarily have to have a membership to these places to know whether it's bullish or bearish. That's interesting. The other element of accuracy here that NoBias is working on is the authors themselves. So they're apparently able to take the predictions of authors and then grade the authors on whether or not what they say has happened and kind of score them over time. So I'm not an algorithm expert. I can't specifically comment on their methodology for this, but if it really is happening the way they say, then that's a pretty powerful tool for vetting people. In this space with a lot of different voices saying a lot of different things, that's an interesting thing. I'm certainly not going to track the claims of all these different authors, put them in a spreadsheet, track their claims, track them against what actually happens with the stock, and then grade them based on their overall accuracy. There's no way. So that's kind of amazing that they figured out how to do that. To be honest, just listening to real professionals in this space in the investing world is probably a big step up over most of the voices in our lives. The internet has given anyone with a camera a voice. And overall, I think that's incredible. That's why I'm here. It's empowering, but it also opens the door to people who don't necessarily know what they're talking about at all. I think that we have to be increasingly intentional about the voices that we listen to because that influences the actions in our life. So odds are that dude on TikTok who mentions all the awesome money he's making on binary trading or shorting some specific stock, he might not actually be that trustworthy compared to industry professionals who are actually experts and who NoBias has then vetted for us. 100,000 followers is not necessarily the best resume. Potentially the best and worst thing about NoBias could be just how bland the information is. Let's say you look up a stock. You have all these articles, some bullish, some bearish. You have some kind of general ratings across the top, and that means what exactly? So outside of having already picked an author or two that you will trust implicitly, there's not really a clear indicator for action here. And liability-wise, that's probably really smart for NoBias to not specifically recommend any kind of action in particular, because it means that they're taking on that responsibility and that accountability that could get them in trouble as pretending to be some kind of algorithmic investment advisor. But to some degree, the lack of bias is so level, it's so plain and flat, that it means that the interpretation and action is all on you. And yes, that is definitely how we should invest. We should be actively thinking and be involved. But I also think that a lot of people might look for confirmation bias and another voice to just tell them to do what they already want to do. And this is not that. So who is this for? Who's the kind of person that might want this kind of information? It could be someone similar to me who just likes having a lot of information, who could potentially like NoBias as a tool to aggregate all this different information and all this different opinions in one particular place. I love me some data, so this has been fun to play with. It could also be for someone looking to trade stocks on a short-term basis based on popular sentiment. So if a particular stock is all the rage right now, and there are several bullish or positive articles flying around the internet about it, perhaps a lot of people will notice that, and perhaps a lot of people will think it's a good time to buy, will buy it, and there could be a short-term bump in the price. If you're looking for that kind of thing, then maybe this is an indicator for that kind of thing. I don't know. This is far from financial advice either from me or from NoBias, and I doubt NoBias's intention is trying to be some kind of financial investment trend indicator. But if you have the data and opinions at your fingertips easily, you can make whatever decision you deem appropriate with your newly informed research. It could also be for someone who wants to research specific stocks to make content. Obviously for me that makes sense because I'm here making content for you, but there's a lot of people like me out there now making content. So I make online videos about investing. If I want to make a video about Tesla, let's just pick Tesla, I can just type that right into NoBias and easily grab a handful of articles and references and everything else all about Tesla. So if you're in a similar boat either by hobby or by trade, NoBias could be a handy tool to equip you with that info really quickly and really easily. NoBias could also be good for someone who wants to analyze authors and their track records. I don't have anyone I'm particularly trusting when it comes towards investing advice, but if I wanted to test someone's recent articles and predictions without scouring Google for all of their things they've ever written for the last few weeks, then NoBias is a handy tool to do that. I can just type in somebody's name, see immediately what their stance is on a particular investment, and even what their overall accuracy and bias is. So that's something that's really interesting. Actually, this could also be interesting for you as an author. If you're a financial writer, just to see your own data, because you're probably not tracking this for yourself. So that could even be interesting for these authors themselves to go, what am I biased towards myself? What is my overall accuracy score? Hey, if you're a financial writer and your accuracy is high, you need to bring this data to your boss and go ask for a raise today. Just just for funsies, I kind of tested this. So I typed in a popular financial website. I clicked on like the very first article and searched for that author on NoBias just to go, who is this person? What kind of record do they have on here? Turns out this guy's pretty darn good overall. And when it comes to his accuracy and average return per call, whatever that means, like he's done pretty well. Also, if you're big on browser extensions and you want another browser extension that helps you filter the information, NoBias is really good for you. So I'm really strict when it comes to the browser extensions that stick around for very long. And typically the only one that remains on my like daily tool bag of browsers is Grammarly because it helps me make less spelling mistakes. Hey, Grammarly, hit me up for a sponsorship. Other than that, I pretty much don't use anything. And for most of what I'm doing as far as research or online surfing, I also don't use a desktop browser. I use an iPad or a phone, and so that's all mobile. So the few times that I did use and notice the desktop extension with NoBias, I didn't mind it. Like, it wasn't bad. I didn't go and try and find a way to uninstall it like I do with most of them, like right away. It actually did work really well. It seemed pretty slick and intuitive and not that intrusive or annoying. How would I improve NoBias? Now that I've used it for a little while, I have some experience with it. What did I not like so much? The first thing is I wanted help really understanding. So I think the service overall is still a little bit difficult to interpret, if that makes sense. And I wanted to be kind of more frequently reminded what it is I'm looking at. Like, what does it mean when an author has an average return per call of 14% across all calls? Like, maybe I should know more about finance than I do, and I should know what that means, but I don't know what that means. Are we talking call options? Predictions they've made? Like, they've called this? How is this calculated? Like, maybe I'm a little slow and I'm missing it, but I see this data and I just don't know how that's supposed to impact the way I interpret it. The next thing I would change or improve is just the formatting and refining that a little bit to look a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure if I think the service is like clean and minimal in design or if it's just Spartan and like lacking more features. There are so many available services today that are free or are also cheap, like NoBias is pretty darn cheap, that if I'm actually going to pay for something and commit to it, I expect there to be a lot of features. My impression with NoBias is that the few features that are good are legitimately good. They're clear, they're fairly useful. There's just not like a whole lot of them. And that's totally my opinion, so maybe you feel differently. Like, I'm pretty sure that you can get in there and have like a free account for a while so you can check it out for yourself. You don't have to like get through a paywall to just check it out. So if you want to, go and look at it and tell me what you think. Leave me a comment back and go, no, I think this is fine. This is informative. Or you could say, no, I think it is pretty Spartan. Also, as of this very moment in time, there is no mobile app. I do almost everything on mobile, like I said, very little desktop use. And so I think that a mobile app would be a lot more slick than trying to use a browser. At this very second, there isn't an app, but I've talked to the CEO of NoBias and she told me that there is an app coming really, really soon. So by now, you could probably go to the App Store and find the app. In terms of use on a mobile browser, it does work, but the UI is definitely not optimized for use with like a little small screen and medium-sized fingertips. I see that the functionality appears to be literally exactly the same as on desktop, but the things you need to navigate in the area that you need to be able to scroll up and down, it's just not properly sized and designed to work on mobile. So I had a hard time with it. The final question is, will I use it? Will I keep the service and keep paying for it? I appreciate that NoBias so far has helped me recognize a little bit of my own skepticism and cynicism, and to combat that at least a little bit with statistics that prove that some people really do have a good track record of knowing what they're talking about. However, I still largely don't want to even pay attention to those kinds of inputs that are largely commenting on a really short-term perspective. To me, personally, not financial advice, my goals, my kind of investing, the short term is the enemy. I don't want to be aware of the short term. I'm not a day trader. I never really want to be. I'm not even a short-term trader. One of my goals is actually to never get hit with short-term capital gains. So most of the timeline that people talk about in their articles and on their little mentions online, they're already too short for me because they're talking about next quarter or after this event happens when so-and-so launches himself up into space or whatever that looks like. I want to buy an investment and hold it for decades. You can probably see where I'm going with this, but NoBias is probably not for me, at least personally. It could be good for you if you want the things we discussed, but for right now, I don't. And in a nutshell, that's what NoBias has been about, at least for me, with my first month or two of use, my overall opinions of it. It's decent. It's definitely decent. And I don't know of many other, if any other services out there whose real sole focus and intent is to be free of bias, free of hype, and to just give you the tools to make your own interpretations. So if you're looking for that, I think it could be valuable. If you're not looking for that particular thing, I would say skip it. If you're new here and you made it this far, thank you so much, because you've watched a lot of video and you've seen a lot of my face. And if you're not sick of it yet, then go ahead and subscribe for future videos, because I talk about investing, personal finance, early retirement, and all things money. I'd like to do more of this kind of stuff in the future, where I look at these new services and just give my complete unbiased opinion about it. My unbiased opinion about them, and just let you know what I think. And if you want to share in that, then make sure and subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. If you've tried out NoBias and you have any opinions about it, then leave me a comment below, because I'm curious to know what you all think about it too. Obviously, I've left a link for NoBias in the description, but you can also just Google it if you want to check it out. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye.